In this video, like you've obviously clicked on it, I just wanted to share like my personal views about what Sapenza's been saying, because it's one thing to sort of like talk about Chinese politics and talk about China as a country and whatever, and that's his choice, you know, that's what he's interested in doing. But what I'd like to do is just set the record straight in a sense, and there are always, like, this video is going to be the video where people sort of say, well, you're a shill, but I don't believe I am, because I really love my country. At the same time, yeah, I definitely have a huge amount of affection for China, but I'm always going to be Australian. I am an Australian, so all I want is for China to get a fair go. Now, the three things I want to talk about, the big achievements of the Chinese government, are things that I've personally experienced. They're not things that I've read about, and they're not things that people can say, well, that's wrong, because they're just facts. And if Sapenza and those guys want to tell me that my facts are incorrect, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that happen. And it's not going to happen. And then there's another couple of things that I'd like to add to that. A lot of people, it is a David and Goliath struggle, you know, between myself and people like me and the big anti-China YouTubers. They say they're anti-government, but it's pretty obvious that they're just anti-China. And the sad thing is that their audience is made up of people who've never visited the country, and it's mainly made up of people who don't have the full picture. And the images you can see behind me, I mean, that's taken in a really beautiful place. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that China's heaven on earth, you know, but when I talk about the three, it is to me, you know, but it's not a perfect country by any stretch of the imagination. Nowhere is. But the three things I want to talk about, like, let's just get straight into them. Number one, when I first came into China, there were these, I guess they were like schools in a way. I mean, that would be the polite way of saying it, but they were basically prisons, you know, and the police could just sort of take you there. There was a whole network of them. They were nationwide. I mean, it's funny that Sapenza and those guys, they've never, I don't want to say those guys' name again for the rest of this video, but it's funny, those kinds of people, they've never mentioned this. They've never mentioned it. Either they didn't know about it, or they just, I guess, weren't interested in it. So basically, these places, people could be taken and put there for a month or 2 months, and they'd get like a re-education. And obviously, from a human rights perspective or a rule of law perspective, it wasn't very good, because the police were often not following processes. They were just sort of like, I mean, 20 or 30 people maybe said, this guy's the bad guy, he did this, he did that. The easiest thing was just to take them away. Now, and they could just drop them there. That was all they had to do. Now, there were some benefits to it, because a lot of frustrating people could just be removed like that. But at the same time, yeah, like it's definitely like, and look, that's the first big achievement. They're gone. That's the first big thing that Mr. Xi did. You know, he got rid of all of them. And there's one. What I was going to do would have made the video maybe cooler, was to do like outside shots and stuff. But I'm just busy, you know. I'm busy with Microsoft Teams and all kinds of annoying things. So, but I am putting out this video. But yeah, like, I used to walk past it. When I first came to live where I live, it was either closed or it had been like very much shut down. But all of the buildings were still there. The watchtowers were still there. The guard towers were still there. And yeah, like things like that, they just obviously had like a bit of a chilling effect. So when people talk about China as a police state or something like that, the infrastructure of that police state is just gone. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So you know, I would consider that a big achievement. And yeah, that's number one. Number two is the pollution. Now, I could talk about the pollution like all day. Like, I could talk about the pollution all day. I was there, I was in China during 2013, 2014, when it was at its worst. And it was mind blowing. You know, it was mind blowing. I often joke that when I came to China, I had blonde hair and blue eyes. You know, and the pollution altered me. You know, but it was mind blowing. You know, it was absolutely mind blowing. You could barely see over the road quite often, and it was a big problem. And a lot of people said it was impossible to change it. And how was it changed? It wasn't changed just overnight. Like there was a coal-fired power plant down the road that got shut down. All of the central heating where I live and in most of northern China has been changed to gas and electricity. People used to burn coal just like everywhere, you know, even these little sheds like where people manage the parking or they manage gates or whatever, these little gatehouses, they all had like coal bricks that they were burning. So all of that was banned. Even fireworks were banned. Like the whole country was just completely changed, and a lot of these really small factories were shut down, and people lost their jobs, and it was tough for people. But at the end of the day, like, there's blue skies nearly every day. And if you said to somebody back in 2016, 2015, 2014 that was going to happen, people would have said, like, you're crazy. Like, you know, that's never going to happen. And it's happened. Also improving the quality of fuel. I guess they just had to pick up the phone and call their mates at Sinopec and China Petroleum and ask them to improve it. But that's what they did. They did all of these things. They put filters on trucks. They decommissioned old trucks. They, you know, and that is a huge achievement. And that's another reason why people, they do have this admiration, this respect for the achievements of the government. And the third one is the children. I remember, like, when I first came here, everybody was like, oh, this is my brother, this is my sister, but it wasn't their brother or sister, it was their cousin. And everybody had one child, like urban people especially. A lot of country people could get away with having more children, and minorities, without touching on certain minorities and digressing, but like for your normal urban or normal rural Han Chinese family, everybody had one child, or particularly urban people. And you used to talk to people, hey, do you have a brother, do you have a sister? Oh, no, I don't. Well, you didn't even ask because you knew the answer. But now you see mothers cruising around on the electric bikes, you know, son in front, daughter on the back. You see 2-child families, 3-child families. It's just, yeah, like you see it all the time. Children have brothers, children have sisters. I grew up with a brother, so I know how much fun it can be having a brother, and haven't talked to him for a while. But when you're kids, I mean, it's great. It's really cool, and you're not lonely, and yeah, that's a big one. Now, the other two I want to talk about is, well, I could do 2 and 3, but there's so many things. Like and these are things I've experienced. Okay, the canals. So when I first came to Tianjin, I was really interested by the canals. Like I've sort of not changed in that sense. Like I've always been just interested in this, interested in that. So I always thought the canals were really cool because I come from Australia and we have rivers, we have creeks and whatever. But the idea, we have some canals as well actually, but not many. But the idea of people just like making rivers and making canals, and when you see how big they are, I just was like, wow, like it's really cool. Like the canals, they just really struck me because you can work out if you've dug a hole and buried a pet mouse or something, you know how much work it is to dig a canal, and it's just, they're infinite, they go on forever. It's just, it really is mind blowing. Now, when I first came to China, a lot of those canals were really dirty. They were like drains, and they were literally, some of them. I mean, I don't want to get too negative and make out like everything was really bad in the past. Like, I mean, you would have to get out of the city. I had to go far out of the city to find this, but yeah, I found canals like full of rubbish. Full of rubbish, and it just was really upsetting. Like, I wasn't crying or anything, but it was just like, oh, really? Like, what? I went back to those same canals now. They have been planted with reeds. People are fishing in them. There's no rubbish. If there's rubbish, it's like very, very small amounts of rubbish. Like, it's beautiful. And there's been a lot of canal restoration work, a lot of canal rehabilitation work. It's really cool. Like, I even wanted to do like an honours thesis or a PhD or something on the canals, but apparently that's not important enough. People would rather talk about contentious issues like talking about a war when there isn't a war and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, the canals. So that was really, really, really impressive. And as someone who like worked for Parks Victoria, like picking up rubbish, driving a little boat, yeah, like I just have some limited understanding of how difficult it must have been to do that, to change that situation, especially when you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of. I mean, I'm not going to claim that I've visited every canal, but you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of kilometres. And what they did was they had like every section of canal has like a manager, and it's very interesting. Like I said, I wanted to do an honours thesis on it. If anyone's watching that runs a university, I mean, give me a scholarship and I'll do it. I'll drop everything and I'll do it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the rule of law. I mean, this is a tricky one because I did pass contract law, so I do have an idea. I do have an idea the second time. I do have some idea about the law, but I mean, I've never been a lawyer. I don't have a law degree or anything. I'm not going to claim to be like a lawyer or something or have a lot of insight into the law, but China's been investing in the rule of law, and anyone in China would say that the way that the government does things now, it's much more by the book. Like, it's not just like find the right person. And I'm not saying that it's completely altered, but it's certainly improved. Like, especially with the things that foreigners experience. Like, I mean, when we used to do all of our visas, we used to sort of like go all together, and there'd be an old guy and he'd ask us questions, and maybe he was pretty relaxed. I mean, I don't have any anecdotes of people being rejected and stuff, but it was kind of this culture of like someone will decide. Whereas now it's more of like a points-based system, or it's done by the book. People are following processes more, and again, that's a huge achievement of the government. It gives businesses confidence. It can be a bad thing as well, because in the Wild West days or in the wild past, it was maybe easier to do things sometimes if you were a bit savvy. But for general like just rule of law stuff, it's a big improvement. And look, I'll just stop there because I think I've said enough. But like, what I've always been interested in doing is just being fair, being reasonable, and telling the truth. And I've got a Bible here, and like, it doesn't matter what religion that you're into. I mean, my wife, she has her Buddhist faith, and a lot of Chinese people are Buddhists or they're Muslims or whatever. You don't even have to have a religion. I mean, there is also the idea that the truth is immutable. Like, it can't be altered. And people want to focus on like everything contentious, and they want to be rude, and they want to be aggressive, and they want to start a fight, and that's their hobby. But those 3 + 2 things that I've talked about, they're big achievements. So when people want to say like be really rude or really offensive about the Chinese government or the Chinese leadership, and Sapenza saying that they're inept and whatever, I just wanted to set the record straight. because for lots of people, those three issues are like really significant, and the last two issues as well, like really like very, very significant in terms of quality of life and stuff. And then also there's just like overarching all of that, there's just all of the infrastructure being built, all of the buildings that are being built, all of the buildings being built, all of the subways and stuff like that. And there's a new subway about to open near where I live. It should open in the next couple of months, should open before the winter. So all of these things, roads, subways, bridges, I mean, the day that I see a broken bridge and someone says, you know, oh, you can't go over the bridge, it's broken. I say, who broke it? Oh, you know, the Communist Party broke it. I'll be like, what? I don't like them anymore. You know, I like the bridge. I'll lose my, pardon me, I'll lose my respect for them. You know, I'll lose my admiration for them. But they're not breaking down bridges. They're building bridges. They're building things. They're building their country. And all these guys that hate China, or they're angry because they got divorced or whatever happened to them in China, that is the truth. And it's immutable. It is immutable. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.